Hi everyone! This video is on the topic of teaching your dog a calm settle like you see my dogs doing here, even when the treat bag is out and it's rustling. They know that if they just relax and chill, the treats are coming to them and they're going to be highly reinforced for just chilling. Hey, Wishy. There you go. If you have a dog that's extremely over-aroused and gets easily frustrated around food, it can seem counterintuitive to use food to help teach your dog to relax. Now, if you were to just train a downstay or a duration go to a mat, what could happen is that frustration and arousal over food can be extremely hard to get rid of. But what you can do instead, and what I suggest as the first step to teaching this calm settle around food, is to have treats around your house on counters in jars that are easy to access, or have low-value treats in a bait bag on your person, and you're just going to walk around the house going about your daily business, and when you see your dog relax, say he just plops down in the kitchen and he's not thinking about the food, then you're going to calmly and slowly walk over to him and drop a treat between his paws, or use a calm marker like good or yep, and then calmly go and drop a treat between his paws. Now what this is going to do is you're going to be reinforcing your dog for calmly settling around your house. So it's a technique called capturing, where you see the behavior that you want and you reinforce it with a treat. Now, what will happen at first is that most likely your dog will pop up and expect more treats, especially if you do training with treats and he's used to getting lots of treats one after the other or eating a whole meal. So you feed your dog a treat, you show them that you have no more treats, and then you go about your business and really convince your dog that that was just a one-off treat for relaxing. And what's going to happen is that your dog isn't going to then, after getting one treat, have that expectation that more treats are coming and that frustration and arousal about when am I going to get my next treat. And this is going to help extremely to calm your dog around food. So the food being present isn't the predictor that you're suddenly going to do exciting stuff and get excited. It's about being calm and relaxed. Now, a lot of people think also that if you use food to help calm your dog down, that they then are going to be slower when you use food to do behaviors and tricks. And as you might have seen on my YouTube channel, that's simply not true. You can get a lot of speed and enthusiasm using treats, but you can use a different treat delivery. So, for example, if I want my dog to do exciting heel work where my dog is really amped up and looking beautiful and with a tail flagging, I can use the treat in a different way than I use it for teaching calm behaviors like this settle. For some of my clients, I suggest doing this exercise for at least 5 days before you even start any sort of initial training, as what can happen is if you start trying to train with food when a dog is very excited and frustrated about food, you can kind of create a habit that the dog gets frustrated as soon as you start training and gets overexcited. So simply for 5 days, not focusing on training your dog, but simply reinforcing those moments that your dog lays down and relaxes is really going to set you up for success, to have a dog that's not getting frustrated during training over not getting the food fast enough. And not only is this great for us as humans, but I really think that it's in the dog's best interest, because if we're going to be using food to get behavior and for them it's a stressful, frustrating experience, that's simply not fair in my opinion. And working on this is really going to help the dogs out to learn how to live with us and learn how to deal with our type of training that we want to do with them. Hey, splashers. The way that I initially learned how to train the settle was using capturing, where you put your dog on a leash and harness and you simply wait until the dog relaxes and settles, and then you can calmly drop a treat or use a calm marker such as good before you drop the treat and reinforce that calm behavior. However, I found when helping people online where I can't be there to help them, or it's a person who has no training background and really needs help to teach their dog to relax on a mat, I found it very beneficial to actually use luring to train this calm behavior and get it started. So what I train is teaching the dog to go to the mat and lay down. So one way of doing this is simply giving the dog a treat and then luring the dog onto the mat and then into the down position. Good. And then calmly releasing the treats in between the dog's paws like this. You can also add a release cue, such as free. And I have a video on YouTube on how to train your dog to go to his bed, and I'll link that in the description below, because you can even send your dog away to go and relax on a mat. Or as you might have noticed, I have some dogs lined up here. I can send them to go and relax and wait their turn while another dog is working. And even though I utilized a lure, and you could even use a clicker to train this behavior, you can see that you can then reinforce calmness during this behavior using that method of simply dropping a treat calmly between the dog's paws for relaxing where you want them to relax. And there's actually 4 dogs up here. There you go. The wonderful thing about teaching your new dog or puppy a long duration settle behavior is that it makes it extremely easy to then teach a long duration downstay, because the dog is used to having to wait calmly without getting frustrated before getting his next treat. So simply not receiving a treat doesn't make the dog feel like they did something wrong and they need to change their behavior, such as offer different behaviors or come running to you to say, hey, what's going on? I've been laying here for so long, something must be up. So I really like to teach the settle for many reasons, and one of them actually is to train long duration behaviors where the dog is static. You can add a verbal cue to the settling behavior. So for me, when the dog is settling on a mat, I simply say, go to your mat, and that just means that you stay on the mat and relax on it until you get a release. Or you can have a situational cue that anytime the dog is on leash and you're standing for a long period of time or sitting for a long period of time, that is the cue to settle. Or you can have a verbal cue to tell your dog to relax and settle, such as settle, or Gersha Stewart uses the cue relax, which I think is a really lovely cue. Now we're practicing the same exercise with the dog on a leash and harness next to a chair with the dog's mat below the chair. Free. So what I am doing is walking towards the chair, and as the dog reaches the mat, I'm cueing the dog to lay down. So you could actually turn the mat into the cue to lay down, and that is simply by repeating this exercise multiple times and then not giving the down cue and seeing if the dog might offer laying down on the mat. And then with this behavior, you want to be very slow and calm when you deliver the treats. You don't want to be throwing them to reset the dog, because that can get the dog really excited about the treats when you want your dog to be calm. Halo free. So there he just offered the behavior. Good. Once your dog is offering laying down on the mat, or after you say your cue, you can then sit in a chair with your dog on a leash and harness with the mat below you, and anytime you notice your dog relaxing and not staring at your food, you can mark and reinforce your dog. Now, for some dogs, this can be extremely difficult if you're in your own house with absolutely no distractions, because it looks very much like a training session. When you have food on you, you're used to training your dog and getting your dog to focus on you 100% and expect that food is coming. So I suggest for the average person that when you get to this step of sitting in a chair and trying to reinforce your dog for not thinking about the food like that, I suggest doing it outside, somewhere that's not too exciting or too distracting for your dog, where they might be stressed and not want to take food. So maybe your backyard where there's some noises happening, but your dog is still able to train with you. And what you can do is utilize those distractions as the moment to mark and reinforce your dog for relaxing calmly. So here, inside the house, what can easily happen is that the dog can learn, oh, it's about looking away, and then you get your dog offering you these ways of getting you to reinforce them by looking to the left or kicking a leg, so it looks like they're relaxing, when really they're thinking, how do I get that next treat? So to use the treats to reinforce the dog for being calm around the food and not fixating on the food, going out to a distracting location where your dog is going to naturally look to the left to hear a noise or smell a smell, or if you're working in the house, your dog actually is starting to lay down and take a nap and rest their chin on their paws, you can reinforce it. But when you see your dog starting to offer you little behaviors like tapping his chin down on the ground to get you to give him a treat, then you want to make sure that you're not reinforcing those behaviors. If you go somewhere and your dog is a little bit stressed, say you've gone to a cafe and your dog isn't thinking to just relax at your feet, you can revert back to luring your dog into the position, giving them an initial treat, and then marking every time they notice a distraction. And you can also calmly pet your dog if that helps calm your dog down. So not petting like this, like most people like to pet their dog when they're feeling a little bit nervous or worried about their dog's behavior. You want to make sure that when you're petting your dog to help calm your dog down, that your hands are still or moving extremely slowly. So you can just rest your hand on your dog to help calm him down or move it extremely slowly across your dog's body. Sometimes sighing and blinking your eyes when your dog looks at you can help them to calm down in a new environment because they're seeing that you're calm and relaxed in that environment. Hey, Pupsy. So here we are. We've added in some handling into the settle, and he looks pretty sleepy right now. His eyes are blinking softly and slowly, and the muscles in his body are very loose. I think he might actually fall asleep. Good. And I can mark and then drop the treat between his paws. Sometimes it's easier to just move and drop the treat between their paws, but using a calm marker that's always associated with calm movements is a great idea. I don't suggest using the clicker for this exercise. However, if you use the clicker to train extremely calm behaviors, it's really not going to matter, but I prefer, if you're out and about, to just calmly drop the treat between your dog's paws, and that way, if you're talking to someone at a cafe, you don't have to draw attention to your training, but also with that clicker, if you have a prehistory of doing lots of training with the clicker, hearing that clicker can get the dog into training mode where they're thinking, what do I need to do next to get that treat? Where with this calm settle, you're basically reinforcing your dog for relaxing on his own. And the great thing about that is that your dog is going to start choosing to do that. And when you stop clicking and stop marking and giving food, they're going to enjoy settling at your feet when on a leash and harness without having to have treats all the time like my other dogs are doing over there. And they've been settled for maybe an hour because I've had to do some retakes of this video. So the great thing is that you're teaching them how to enjoy relaxing. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support my work, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. You can also become a supporting member of channel Kikopup by clicking the join button. I just want to give a quick shout out to the service dog trainers who support my channel through the Kikopup membership. I greatly appreciate your support for making videos like this one to educate the general public on how to train dogs without the use of physical and psychological intimidation. See you later, guys.